بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, we thank Allah Azza wa Jal for allowing us to come together on this particular day and enjoying the food that we enjoyed. And I promised you all that I would give a talk. Although that which I intended was to talk about my rihla, my trip to Yemen and then to Saudi Arabia. The purpose of me traveling to Yemen specifically was because I wanted to see the place that Sheikh Mukbir rahmatullah alayh had established. Although it should be known that there's several centers of learning in Yemen now that were opened. All of them were opened by the students of Sheikh Mukbir rahmatullah alayh. All of them were opened by the students of Sheikh Mukbir. The one that has the most students and the one that's known the most is the most famous is the Match, where Sheikh Mukbir he himself used to teach rahmatullah alayh. Yemen was a place. It should be known that Yemen was a place of the past that was known for ilm. Yemen was a place in the past that was known for ilm. For example, you have the famous rihla of Imam Ahmed and Yahya bin Ma'in. You have the famous rihla of Imam Ahmed and Yahya bin Ma'in when they left from Baghdad and they went through the Arabian Peninsula and they went down to Yemen because they wanted to hear from someone that was present in Yemen at that time. So they wanted to hear from someone that was present in Yemen at that time. So they went down and they visited Yemen, and on their way back they heard from that individual. On their way back, Yahya bin Ma'in, he said, I want to stop in such and such place to test one of his scholars that he had heard from before. So Imam Ahmed said to Yahya bin Ma'in, don't test him. He's known that his knowledge, his memorization is very strong. Don't test him. So Yahya bin Ma'in said, I have to test him. He said, I have to test him. Imam Ahmed and Yahya bin Ma'in, rahimahumullah ta'ala, they stopped at that particular place. And Yahya bin Ma'in, before going to that scholar, Yahya bin Ma'in wrote down the narrations that he heard from that particular scholar. 30 narrations, and at the end of each narration, 10 narrations, and then 9 narrations, and in the 10th one, he entered a narration that wasn't from that scholar. And then he wrote 9 more, and the 10th one he mentioned a narration that wasn't from that scholar. Then he wrote 9 more, then the 10th one he mentioned a narration that wasn't from that scholar. And there was a third individual with him. I can't remember who the individual was, but he wasn't known for knowledge. And there was Yahya bin Ma'in, there was Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, and there was a third individual, but he wasn't known for knowledge. He was just going along with them. And he's the one that's telling the story. So he said, we entered upon the scholar, and we greeted him and the likes. And then Yahya bin Ma'in said, I want the narrations that we heard from you a long time ago, I just want to review those narrations. So he read the 9 narrations to the scholar, to his teacher, and the teacher shaking his head like, yes, that's okay. When he got to the 10th one, the teacher, when Yahya bin Ma'in read it, the teacher said, cross it out, I don't remember that being from what I taught you. So then he read the second 9, the second group of 9. He read the 9th. When he got, the sheikh is shaking his head. When he got to the 10th, he said, cross that out. The sheikh said, cross that out. I don't remember that being from the narrations that I told you. When he got to the third group of 9, he read the 9. When he read the 10th, he got upset. And he stood up, and Yahya bin Ma'in and Imam Ahmed and the third individual who's telling the narration, he's sitting. And the scholar stood up and he said, verily this one, the one that is traveling with you, with Yahya bin Ma'in and Imam Ahmed, verily he doesn't have enough knowledge to do this. He realized something's wrong. He said, verily he doesn't have enough knowledge to do it. Then he looked at Imam Ahmad, he says, verily he's too pious to do this. Then he looked at Yahya bin Ma'in, he said, you did this. And he stood up and he kicked him in the head and walked away. He stood up, he kicked him in the head and he walked away. So when they were leaving, Yahya bin Ma'in is holding his head and Imam Ahmad said, I told you don't test him. He said, told you don't test him. And Yahya bin Ma'in said, verily his kick to my head was more beloved than our whole trip. Verily his kick in my head was more beloved than my... I know that he's strong in his memorization. You know, so that story just goes to show you that it was from the past that individuals... Yemen was known for knowledge. You had Abdul Razak al-San'ani, he has his book, Abdul Razak al-San'ani, Imam Shawkani, and then you had other individuals that came after them, like Sheikh Muqbil and the likes of that. So Yemen was a place known for knowledge, and it was a place known, from that same narration, it was a place known that people would go there to seek knowledge. Not only did it have knowledge present within itself, but it was a place that people would go to seek knowledge. Sheikh Muqbil rahmatullah alayhi, Sheikh Muqbil was an individual from the area that he was born, had a Shiite background. It had a Shiite background, and Allah gave him the ability, or gave him the tawfiq to go to Saudi Arabia and to study in Mecca. And actually when he was in Mecca, he wasn't really studying, he was a doorman. Sheikh Muqbil rahmatullah alayhi, he was a doorman. He was just like in Mecca, you have the doorman. In Egypt you have the doorman. So he was a doorman, just sitting at the bottom of the door, opening the door, taking up people's baggage, luggage and stuff like that. But he used to go to the Haram. In Mecca, and he would be very much attracted to the knowledge that was being spread there. So he met an individual in the Haram, and he said, I'm very attracted to the knowledge. What are some of the books that I should study? So the person told him Bulugh al-Maram, which is in basically fiqh and hadith. They told him Bukhari, Muslim. They told him Fath al-Majid, which is the explanation of Kitab al-Tawheed. So Sheikh Muqbil took those books and he began to read them. He began to read them by himself, and he would go to the Haram every now and then. So he became very much attracted to knowledge, and even some of his friends used to visit him, and they saw that he started wearing his shamag wrapped, and his stove was short and the likes of that. They said, you seem like you're changing. He said, yes, I think I'm going to start studying. So he said, yes, I think I'm going to start studying. So he left Mecca, and I'm cutting through this. So he left Mecca, he went to Medina, he joined the Islamic University of Medina. He graduated from 2 colleges at one time, which was the College of Da'wah, the College of Islamic Propagation, and the College of Kulliyat Sharia. Which he wasn't studying both of them at the same time. What he would do is, he was in the College of Da'wah, and in the summertime he would join the College of Sharia, and he finished both of them at the same time with 2 bachelors. And then he wrote his, then he went into his magister. He went into the master's program, and he wrote his book, which is a book in hadith, talking about something from Sahih Muslim, or the hadiths that Imam Darqutni had a problem with that were present in Sahih Muslim, and the likes of that. So he wrote that book, and the person that was in charge of his letter, his magister, said that if I could give it a PhD, I would have given it a PhD, because it wasn't on the level of a master's. It was on the level of PhD, but that was something against the rules. Then Allah decreed that Sheikh Muqbil would return to Yemen, and he hasn't been in Yemen for several years now. And he said that when the plane was returning to Yemen, I made dua while I was in the sky that Allah wouldn't let the plane land, because he was going to return to a Shiite place. Muqbil landed there, and he began teaching, the children, and then people from all over the world, from Egypt, people from Saudi, people from other places of Yemen, people from Jordan, they began to travel to Sheikh Muqbil. Although you should know that his da'wah in Yemen wasn't more than 15 years. It was a very short period of time. But in that short period of time, the da'wah spread very quickly through Yemen. So presently you have in Yemen, you have Damaj, where the individual teaching there, Sheikh Yahya al-Hajuri, well known. You have Ma'abar, the individual teaching there, Sheikh Muhammad Imam. You have Hudayda, the individual teaching there, Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab al-Wasabi, and he's the oldest out of all the students that are presently teaching in Yemen. He's the oldest, Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab al-Wasabi, and some of his books have been translated into English. You have Abdul Aziz al-Bar'i. Now you have Abdul Rahman al-Adni, which is in Aden, and he's opening up a dawah center down there. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Yemen now. I left the Emirates, which is about a month ago. I left and I went straight to Yemen by plane. I landed in Aden. The first thing I noticed about Yemen is a very poor place. You know, it's a very, especially coming from the Emirates, coming from the US, you expect a little bit, you know, more. But Yemen is a very, very poor place, and they're very much. Allah has tested them with this drug this plant that they eat, which is called ghat. You know, everybody eats it. It's in the airport. As soon as you come off the plane, you see these guys stuffing it in their cheeks. You know, people laying on the street stuffing it in their cheeks. It's a very poor place. Allahumma musta'an. And it's a test from Allah Azza wa Jalla. It's a test from Allah Azza wa Jalla. It's sold on the streets. You know, so after seeing that, I really just wanted to get to the students of knowledge. I didn't care to be anywhere else but the centers of knowledge. I took a bus the same night. I took a bus from Aden to Sana'a. It took about 6-7 hours. You know, it was a very mountainous road, but it was at night, so I couldn't see much. I just know we were going uphill the whole time because Aden is sea level, but Sana'a is in the mountains. You know, so you're going up north. Aden is in the south on the ocean. You're going up north. So we went up north about 6-7 hours on the bus. Then we landed in Sana'a. I stayed for maybe 3 hours. I stayed maybe 2-3 hours, and then the person came from me from Damaj. You know, although now it's very difficult because there's no telephones in Damaj. So you have to arrange with somebody that comes to Sana'a, and he arranges it with you, transportation. Then we took the trip to Damaj in a pickup truck, old pickup truck. I didn't think it could make it. We passed the checkpoints, at every checkpoint, because the government is from Ahl Sunnah. The government of Yemen, like Sheikh Yahya Jordan and other ones say, the government is from Ahl Sunnah. But they have a problems with Jama'at al-Houthi, which is a Shia group within Yemen that causes problems with the government. You know, so at each checkpoint, you know, you'll find the army soldiers, whatever. You just say Assalamu alaikum, salam, they'll let you go. You know, they just make it. The only reason the driver said the only reason they're here is if the Shiites do something and then they want to run, those guys are there to stop them at the different checkpoints. So that's the only reason that they're there. We passed through the checkpoints. It took us about 6 hours. Then at the last checkpoint we turned off because the next checkpoint it'll be where they really don't want foreigners going to the match, because it causes whatever governmental problem that they have. So we turned off and we went into the mountains, and I didn't think this truck was maybe a 1979 truck. You know, and it made it through. It's going through the mountain. It was like a Hummer. It was really going through the mountains. I would never think that this truck would, you know, and it made it. And we pulled into the Maj, and it's fun. As soon as you pull into the Maj, you see people on the street studying. People sitting down under trees reading books. As soon as you pull into the Maj, you know, I was like, subhanAllah, it's just like what people said. As soon as you pull in, I saw guys sitting down studying on the street. You know, you'll see guys in the corner studying, guys under trees studying. We pulled in around Maghrib. I went to the masjid.
What time did you see?
Maghrib time. Right, it was maybe 10 minutes before Maghrib. I pulled in, I dropped my luggage off, I went to the masjid. The masjid was filled with maybe 1,200 students, everyone studying. No joking around, just everyone studying. You hear the Quran in the middle of the masjid, a big circle, because some people are active. They're active learners. They have to move while they're memorizing. So the masjid has a circle in the middle that people just walk around memorizing. Like, I'm not that type of person. When I memorize Quran, it has to be quiet and I have to be still. But some people know. Some people have to move when they memorize. They're different learners. So you see people walking around doing Quran. You see people over there doing Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. You see people over there doing Kitab al-Tawheed. People, maybe about 1,200 students. You know, it was very shocking. You know, it was very shocking. I met some American friends that I knew from America. Gave salam, sat, spoke. Then that night, Sheikh Yahya, I think he taught Sahih Muslim. He taught maybe about 4 different books. You know, and basically it's like what they do in Saudi Arabia. The Sheikh will bring 4 different, and the way Sheikh Yahya teaches, similar to the way Sheikh Muqbil taught, rahmatullah alayh, was that he comes up, you pray salat, then they put somewhat like a minbar there. He sits on a chair, a high chair, which is permissible because during the earlier days of the prophecy of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would sit like I'm sitting now. But then one of the Sahaba, like it's reported in Sahih Bukhari, they said, Ya Rasulullah, should we not make you a seat so that you can sit above, so that you can see more people and people can see you? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam agreed. You know, so it's permissible that the teacher sits above the students at a higher level than the students so that they can see him. It was done by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Sheikh Yahya, and he's very short. He's very short. You know, so Sheikh Yahya sits on this chair, and he lets children, like about their size, he lets them come to the microphone like Sheikh Mukbul used to do, and there's a microphone pointing toward them, and the child reads whatever he wants. He's reading Kitab al-Tawheed, he's reading Usul al-Thalatha, he's reading Sahih Bukhari. So the children, he'll let one child come 5 minutes, then another child comes, maybe about 10 children, they all come and they all get on the microphone and they recite anything. They recite Quran, they recite this. While they're doing that, he's going through questions and answers. He's looking at the questions, whatever he wants to answer, he'll keep it. Whatever he doesn't, he'll put it aside. He does the children for about 10-15 minutes, then he tells them to stop. Then every dars is the same. Then he starts off maybe about 10-15 questions. You know, he does his questions at the beginning of a dars. He starts off with about 10-15 questions, then he'll move those to the side, then he'll take his books. And if it's a book of hadith, he'll say, the Americans stand. So all the Americans in the masjid have to stand up and say the hadith. You know, so that's how they're memorizing. It helps you understand that, alhamdulillah, the brothers are memorizing, but when you hear an individual has memorized Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim from Yemen, it doesn't mean that he was one-on-one with the Shaykh. You know, you shouldn't get the understanding that he's one-on-one. No, everyone's standing. He'll say all of the Americans stand. So all of the Americans will stand, and they'll say the hadith. Then they'll sit down. Then he'll say all of the Indians stand. All of the Indians will stand, say the hadith. Then he'll say all of the Canadians stand. Then he'll say the tribes in Yemen, because he can't say all the Yemenis, the whole masjid, you know. So he'll say the tribes, Hajuri, stand. All the Hajuris will stand. Wasabi, stand. Wasabis will stand. And everyone will say the hadith. Then they'll sit down. Then he'll start off. He brings a lot of fawaid. He brings a lot of benefits from the hadith. I would say more so benefits that are hadithi, which benefits related to the isnad of the hadith. You know, benefits related to the isnad of the hadith. He brings, without a doubt, he brings fiqh from the hadith, but there is not. I don't feel it was as much as we used to get from the senior scholars in Saudi Arabia. You know, I don't feel it as much as we used to get from the senior scholars in Saudi Arabia. The senior scholars in Saudi Arabia, they more so focus on the fiqh of the hadith, more so than the isnad of the hadith. You know, so Sheikh Yahya, one of the great benefits that a person will definitely get from Sheikh Yahya is the fawaid, the benefits that he brings from the isnad of the hadith, the rijal of the isnad. An example of that was when we were doing, if I'm not mistaken, when we were doing Sahih Muslim, he brought Hammad bin Salama, one of the tabi'in or atba' tabi'in, Hammad bin Salama, well known from the Salaf al-Salih. And he said that Hammad bin Salama was an individual, he was considered an imam in the Sunnah. He was considered from the imams of the Sunnah. Although there were people at the time of Hammad bin Salama that were more knowledgeable than Hammad bin Salama. You know, although there were people at the time of Hammad bin Salama that were more knowledgeable than him, but he was the imam of the Sunnah. Yani he had his bab, he had his specialty, and that was defending the Sunnah, correcting the Aqidah. And he kept on saying, he said, although there were people more knowledgeable than him at that time, but it was well known that Hammad bin Salama was the imam of the Sunnah. And the reason I wrote that in my notebook, and the reason why I wrote that was because you have some people today that when it comes across the likes of Sheikh Rabi' bin Hadi, which Sheikh Al-Albani called, he's the Hamil Wi'a al-Sunnah, or the Rayat al-Sunnah, Hamil Rayat al-Sunnah, and he's holding the flag he's holding the flag of Jarh wa Ta'dil. He's holding the flag of Jarh wa Ta'dil. When certain individuals hear that statement of Sheikh Al-Albani, right, who was a muhaddith, without a doubt, he was a muhaddith of our time. You might even say that there was nobody more knowledgeable of hadith at the time of Sheikh Al-Albani than Sheikh Al-Albani. Right? So when people hear that statement of Sheikh Al-Albani, they say, but so and so, and then when they hear that statement of Sheikh Al-Albani about Sheikh Rabi', they'll say, but so and so is more knowledgeable than Sheikh Rabi', and so is more knowledgeable than Sheikh Rabi'. Right? We don't argue that there may be individuals more knowledgeable than Sheikh Rabi' in certain chapters, like in fiqh. Yes, you might have an individual more knowledgeable than Sheikh Rabi'. Like in fara'id, inheritance. You might have individuals more knowledgeable than Sheikh Rabi'. But just like Sheikh Yahya said about Hammad bin Salama, he was the imam of the sunnah of his time, even though there were more people more knowledgeable than him of other things. You know, so what that goes to show you is that every knowledge has its people. But that goes to show you that every knowledge has its people. And when Shaykh al-Albani said that about Shaykh Rabi', what that goes to show you is that every knowledge has its men. So there's no doubt that when Shaykh al-Albani rahmatullah alayhi said that about Shaykh Rabi', he's talking about that particular chapter that Shaykh Rabi' specializes in. And there's no doubt Shaykh Rabi' is knowledgeable in other chapters. But every knowledge has its men. Every knowledge has its men. What's another proof for that, to show you that every knowledge has its men? Is, and that was also mentioned by Shaykh Muhammad al-Banna about Shaykh Rabi'. That was also mentioned about Shaykh Muhammad al-Banna about Shaykh Rabi'. Shaykh Muhammad said, I don't know an individual that knows more about Jarh wa Ta'deel in our time than Shaykh Rabi'. He said, I don't know an individual that knows more about Jarh wa Ta'deel, about men and who's on the Sunnah, who's not, than Shaykh Rabi'. That was also mentioned by Shaykh Uthaymeen. That was also mentioned by Shaykh Uthaymeen about Shaykh Rabi'. One time Shaykh Uthaymeen, I can find the tape, one time Shaykh Uthaymeen was asked, what do you say about Rabi' bin Hadi? Shaykh Uthaymeen says, verily Rabi' bin Hadi is the one that you ask about men. He said, verily Shaykh Rabi' bin Hadi is the one that you ask about men. Yani that's his field. What's another proof to show you that every knowledge has its men? Is the statements of Imam Shafi'i to his student Ahmad bin Hanbal. Imam Shafi'i said to Ahmad bin Hanbal, he said, verily you are more knowledgeable about hadith. So if something comes to you that's authentic or da'if, please inform me so that I can use your statement. Please inform me that I can use your statement. Right, Imam Shafi'i died 204. Imam Shafi'i died 204. Imam Ahmad died 241. And if you read the books of history, Imam Shafi'i is considered to be the teacher of Imam Ahmad. Type, why is Imam Shafi'i telling Imam Ahmad, if you know something to be authentic or da'if, inform me because you are more knowledgeable of hadith? That goes to show you that every knowledge has its men. It goes to show you that every knowledge has its men. Okay, so that was something that was very beneficial, that I benefited from that particular statement of Shaykh Yahya Hajuri, that a person can be from an imam in sunnah even if there's a person present at his time more knowledgeable than him. Even if there's a person present at one time more knowledgeable than him. And it's very important that you know the specialty of the shaykh that you're referring to. It's very important because the person, they'll think that so and so, any of the scholars, they'll think that he's a shaykh in hadith, or he's a shaykh in this, and he's a shaykh in that, and they don't realize that in that particular chapter he's not known to be knowledgeable. In that particular chapter he's not known to be knowledgeable. So go to the scholar that's known to be knowledgeable in that chapter. So go to the scholar that's known to be knowledgeable in that chapter. Okay, and that's clear from what we just mentioned. And that's clear from what we just mentioned. So that was one of the benefits that I got from sitting with Shaykh Yahya al-Hajuri, and as many other benefits. It was like I said, I found in sitting, because I stayed in Damaj for about 4 days, and in 4 days that was probably about 16 classes, because he teaches about 4 classes a day. It was very beneficial. The benefits from Damaj, the fact that it's away from all types of fitna. There's basically no type of fitna. The only fitna that you can have in Damaj is one, laziness. That's the only fitna that you can have in Damaj, that you yourself are lazy. In terms of women, no fitna. Except if you have a disease in your heart, so you sit there and you think about stuff. But other than that, you don't see women without hijab, you won't see this, you won't see that, you won't see tight or by, you won't see any of that in Damaj. And that's very important. Like, the statements of Imam al-Shafi'i, where he mentioned شَقَوْتِ إِلَى وَقِيَ سُوءَ حِفْظِي فَأَرْشَدَنِي بِتَرْكِ الْمَعَاصِي, to the end of the poetry. He said, I complained to Waqi' bin Jarrah, one of the Salaf. He said, I complained to Waqi' about my poor memorization. So he informed me he advised me to leave alone sin. For verily, knowledge is light, and Allah doesn't give the light to a sinner. I complained to Waqi' about my poor memorization, and he informed me to leave alone sin, for verily knowledge of Allah is light, and the light, Allah doesn't give it to anyone. Allah doesn't give it to a sinner. So it's very important to have an environment that there's not much sin present, because that assists you. That type of environment assists you to study, it assists you to memorize. It was also mentioned that someone had seen Imam al-Shafi'i, I can't remember who it was, they saw Imam al-Shafi'i and they saw the light on his face. You know, because there's no doubt that with obedience you have light. When a person obeys Allah, Allah brings light to their face. So he said to Imam al-Shafi'i, I see that Allah has placed light on your face. So don't remove that light with the darkness of sin. You know, so don't remove the light with the darkness of sin. You know, so there's no doubt that sin plays it's a major hindrance in a person trying to memorize. It's a major hindrance in a person trying to memorize. Even myself, when I came to the Wais, I said it's a beautiful place, you know, because there's no sin, basically. You know, there's no sin. You're not going to see any fitna outside, you know, but there's no scholars. You know, so, but yeah, so that in the Mad you won't see sin. You won't see, there's no malls. You can't do any of that type of thing. There's no supermarkets. You can't go in the supermarket. There's no, you know, there's none of that thing. There's no women walking around. The Mad is a Salafi village. The Mad is basically it's a Salafi village, you know. So that was one of the things I benefited from. Another thing that I benefited from that environment was the fact that everyone is studying. You know, the fact that everyone is studying, and that is something that also helps you study. Because, which is an example, like here in Ruwais, you just have people, basically, it's a beautiful place, it's a comfortable place, there's not much fitna, but no one's working for the akhirah. You know, no one, it's apparent that, because you have the Hindus here, then you have the Westerners that live there, and then you have the Muslims, but no one is really working for the akhirah in terms of studies, in terms of, and I don't mean that people are not worshipping Allah. Of course, people are worshipping Allah, but when we're talking about taking it to a higher level in terms of studying, in terms of memorizing, no one's doing it. So it's very difficult for a student of knowledge to memorize and to be consistent when everyone around him is not doing it. You know, everyone around him is not doing it. But if he, for example, if you're memorizing and you meet with your companions and they're memorizing and you review, like the scholars of the past, they used to say, مَذَاكَرَةُ الْعِلْمِ حَيَاةُ الْعِلْمِ. The scholars used to say that reviewing knowledge is life of the knowledge. Reviewing knowledge is life of the knowledge. If I say, okay, you've memorized Surah Al-Baqarah, مثلا, as an example. You've memorized Surah Al-Baqarah, let's go page for page. Let's go page for page. You say a page, I say a page. You say a page, I say a page. Page for page. That helps you. You know, and when when you're doing Qawa'id al-Arba, you know, you say to your family, you say al-Qa'idah al-Ula, I say al-Qa'idah al-Thani. You say al-Qa'idah al-Thalitha, I say al-Qa'idah al-Rabi'a. So it helps you. But when another thing, how it helps you is if you're slacking and falling off, and you meet with your companion. You know, like when I was in Jamiat al-Islamiyya, when I was studying in Medina, I had a companion. Alhamdulillah, we were somewhat diligent, but at times you fall off, at times you joke around. I had a companion that I would go by him once, you know, I remember I used to pass by him, and I used to check him out, what are you up to today? His eyes would be bloodshot red, and he would say, man, I was reading all night, and look what I came across, and he pulled his books down, and his books were all around him, he said, look what I came across this Friday. And I don't think that the individual was doing it out of riyah, because I saw his eyes was red. I mean, out of riyah, you sleep, and then when a person's coming, you just open your books and say, I was reading all night, but your eyes are not red. Okay, no, his eyes were bloodshot red, he had his books all around him, and he would show me what he came across. Type. If I'm slacking in my studies, when I see that, I'm going to be like, wow, you know, I need to pick it up. So when you're around other individuals that are diligent in their studies, that helps you be diligent in your studies. And when you're around lazy individuals, you know, it's difficult for you to be consistent. It's difficult for you to be consistent. So the Maj was, in that regard, I've never seen a place like it. Although I say, when I first came to Medina in 1997, when I first joined the Islamic University in 1997, it was like that. I say, wallahi, it was like that. You go to the masjid, any time of night, you see people there doing tahajjud, people there memorizing, people there studying, people there this, people there that. You will always see somebody doing something. Now it's not the same. You know, Jamiat al-Islamiyya, although I graduated 2-3 years ago, so I don't know, has it changed, but toward the end of my studies, it wasn't the same. You know, they started building malls in Medina and the like, so it became different. You know, it became other outlets for a student to become involved in. You know, but the Maj, it was wonderful in that regard.
How big is the masjid oriented or
is
it a masjid oriented or is it
The masjid itself? The masjid is very, very, very large. The masjid is very, it can fit about 4,000 to 5,000 people. You know, and it can fit about 4,000 to 5,000 people, and in one class you might have 3,000 people that come in one class. You know, which I've only seen in the likes of the durus of Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad. Before Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, the durus that in my lifetime I've only sat with Sheikh bin Baz once in Jeddah when he gave a talk in Jeddah. I've seen the likes with his talks. I've seen the likes with the talks of Sheikh Uthaymeen when Sheikh Uthaymeen used to come to the Haram al-Makki and give the Ramadan classes twice a day. I've seen the likes there. I've seen the likes with Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad. I've seen the likes 3,000, 1,000, 1,500 people. I've never seen it with no other scholar. You know, but in the Maj, for Sheikh Yahya Hajuri's durus, you get about 12, 15, 2 to 3,000 people at one time. Which is a great, you know, it's a great benefit to have so many people. They call that. We have, before we leave the house, we have 10 minutes. So that was a wonderful benefit. They also have a very large library. If you see the pictures of the Maj, you see the library. That's the old library. The new library is much bigger than that. You know, the new library is much, much bigger than that. They have classes for females. Most of the classes for females are taught by Sheikh Muqbil's daughter, Abdullah al-Wadi'iyya. Most of the classes are taught by her. You know, and mashallah, she gives a lot of classes. So it's a lot of benefit. It's benefit throughout the day. There's no classes after Fajr. After Fajr, people just review it. Then at about 9 o'clock, from 9 till about 12, it's only children. The masjid is just filled with children. Children here doing tajweed. Children here doing usul al-thalatha. Children there doing kitab al-tawheed. Children there doing sahih Muslim. Children here doing Quran. It's only filled with children. And then from Dhuhr, the classes begin. Then from Dhuhr, Sheikh Yahya has a class after Dhuhr, has a class after Asr, has a class after Maghrib. That's how the classes basically go. It was a lot of benefit. It was a lot of benefit. And I would advise anyone to go. Although, like I said, you don't have senior scholars in the Maj. You don't have senior scholars in the Maj, but you have the benefit of being in a place that there's no working. You know, there's no working and everyone's studying. You know, unlike Saudi Arabia, unless you're enrolled in one of the universities, you have to work. You can't live in Saudi unless you work, or unless you have a business. So a portion of your time is going to go towards other than your studies. Whereas in the Maj, 100% of your time is towards studies, except if you're lazy. You know, except if you're lazy. So there were great benefits of visiting Yemen. I also met one of Sheikh Muqbil's students called Sheikh Muhammad al-Somali, who teaches in Sana'a. I met him. I met Sheikh Ahmed al-Wasabi. Sheikh Muqbil, when he died, rahmatullah alayhi, he left the Maj to two people, Sheikh Yahya al-Hajuri and Sheikh Ahmed al-Wasabi. I also met Sheikh Ahmed al-Wasabi in Sana'a. You know, so it was very beneficial. Then I left Yemen and I headed for Saudi Arabia, and we can talk about Saudi Arabia after Salah. Inshallah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.